Thank you, Monica. It's a real pleasure and an honor to be here speaking with you today. I'm a great fan of the Southwest. I've visited here and traveled here a number of times over the years, and I actually even lived in northern Arizona for a little while, so I'm really happy to be back. But I did want to start my presentation by sharing with you a little bit about where I come from. Like Mark, our previous speaker, I'm from a long way away, not as far as New Hampshire, but things are very different in my climate, so I thought I would give you a little bit of background on what we do in Wisconsin. So as everybody probably knows, we've been known as the dairy state for many, many years. In 1940, we had over 100,000 dairy farms in Wisconsin, and probably a cheese factory in every county, at least one. So we have a long tradition. So we've been surpassed by California, as everyone knows, in terms of total milk production. But we still consider ourselves a dairy state because of our history and our tradition and the artisanship that grew up around the dairy industry in Wisconsin. So we've capitalized on that and created a niche, a long-term sustainable niche for ourselves in the areas of specialty cheese making. We have over 600 types of cheese made in Wisconsin, and we produce about 46% of all of the specialty and value-added cheese in the country. So we've taken our tradition and the community that we built over since the beginning, the founding of the state, and built that tradition. Today we have just under 10,000 dairy farms in Wisconsin, and part of what we do at DGA is to work to preserve and protect the dairy farming tradition that we have there. So we also have a beef industry that a lot of people may not even know of. It's very different from the ranching industry out here. So we have, again, we have a long tradition of beef processing and sausage making that came actually out of the dairy industry. So a lot of the beef that's produced and made into artisan sausages and things in Wisconsin comes from dairy beef. But we do have a large number of very small beef operations, about 14,000 of them. And my farm is kind of average. We have just 20 cows on 80 acres, but that's more typical of our region. We also have, in this area as well, we're trying to capitalize on the growing grass-fed beef industry and the interest among consumers in grass-fed beef. So we have a beef co-op that has over 120 members. It's a marketing co-op, so we focus on the production side, producing the very best animals we can, and then our co-op manager does the marketing for us. And then a tour of Wisconsin wouldn't be complete without talking about beer a little bit. That's the other thing we're known for. And again, beer, we have a long history of beer making in the state, and as the interest in artisan foods and local foods has become more and more popular, we're rebuilding and regrowing that the local brewery and pub industry that has had historically been in Wisconsin. Okay, so Monica told you a little bit about me. I've spent most of my career kind of meandering through a number of different jobs and roles in Wisconsin, all of which have kind of dealt with a common theme of working in conservation and sustainable agriculture. It almost always had something to do with livestock, and cattle especially. And then also trying to find a place where I can make a difference and have an impact. In about 2002 to 2005, I had the opportunity to go through the Holistic Management Certified Educator training, so I'm very familiar with what holistic management does. We were able to apply it to our own farm, and I use it now in helping our apprentices learn some goal setting and decision-making skills. So that's me. And now as I get toward the end of my career, I've identified a new opportunity for myself in helping support and give back to the community by helping train the next generation. And it's a fun and exciting place to be right now. So Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship, as Monica said, we're the first formal agricultural apprenticeship in the nation. And I'll talk during the presentation about what that means and how it differs from many other very valuable and effective informal apprenticeships and internship programs that are out there. And I'd like to encourage you all to think about formal apprenticeship as a step that agriculture needs. So why is it Dairy Grazing Apprenticeship? We like to think about the triple bottom line and how managed grazing, regardless of where it's practiced, helps balance those needs for an income, protecting the environment, and quality of life and community. So the training is very comprehensive. It covers the entire management of a dairy business, but it's founded and it's based on managed grazing as a forage production system. Okay. So this slide kind of encapsulates why we insist on teaching managed grazing as part of our program. It shows confinement dairy, which I think you have some of out here in New Mexico, and a grazing-based dairy, which is focused on fresh pasture forage. The blue bars on the chart show the income per cow. The red bars show the cost per cow. A lot of the industrial style dairy production in the country are focused on production per cow. So they're chasing that last pound of milk, and they're doing that by increasing their costs. It costs more money for every additional pound of milk you squeeze out of that cow. So the point here is that we want our apprentices to come out of the program thinking about net profit, not production. So they may not be producing as many pounds of milk per cow, but they're putting more money in their pocket at the end of the day because they're focusing on cutting their costs. So as this graph shows, for every one cow in a confinement system, or for every one cow in a grazing system, you would need 4 cows in a confinement system to earn the same amount of income at the end of the day. And that's kind of the point of why we're doing this. Okay, managed grazing also provides a lot of environmental benefits in addition to what we've talked today in soil health and carbon sequestration. Some of the work I did several years ago looked at wildlife habitat, which a lot of you probably think about the upper Midwest and the Corn Belt and think, well, maybe there isn't any wildlife habitat there, and that's pretty close to the truth. But our managed grazing farms are little pockets of what simulates prairie habitat in that region, in that sea of corn and soybeans. And we find that those species that are listed above, I don't know if you can read those, but it's a group of grassland wildlife or grassland birds that nest on the ground in prairies and pastures. And across the bottom of the graph, we're looking at grazing heights. So from 0 to 4 inches all the way up to idle grasslands. And the visual here that I want you to take home is that there are more species and more of them that are adapted to the shorter, more variable, diverse habitat that's created by managed grazing. And that's what one of the values that converting a confinement dairy or beef operation in our region can provide in terms of wildlife habitat. And then finally, there's quality of life. Dairy farming is really, really hard work, and that's part of the reason why a lot of young people aren't staying on the family farm and continuing the operation. Managed grazing is a way of reducing the labor, making the labor perhaps more pleasant, and allowing us to follow our hobbies, raise our kids, and have them be part of the operation. Okay, so this man is Joe Tamandel Sr. He's the father of our executive director. Both Joe Jr. and Joe Sr. Dairy farm. And this this picture kind of encapsulates what grazing dairies are about. Joe is one of the most profitable dairy farms in Wisconsin. He earns over $1,000 a cow in an average year in net profit. And it looks like he's kind of having fun. So what's not to like about that? So that's kind of the foundation of why we developed the program the way we did. Now I want to talk about the question, why apprenticeship? Why did we go this route? And if you think about apprenticeship, that it's one of the oldest occupations or occupational structures that we have in society. It's a way that our craftsmen and artisans from centuries ago until today in almost all cultures have passed along skilled trades, crafts, complex practices that are important to society and rare. The skills are rare. So those becoming an apprentice and being an artisan who trains an apprentice is an essential skill, or it has been historically in all cultures. So this is one of the oldest mentions of apprenticeship from 4,000 years ago in Babylon, and in that time, apprenticeship actually involved adoption of a child. So a family would actually give a child up to adoption to a craftsman so that they could learn the trade and support themselves. And as it shows here in these laws, if the craftsman did not live up to his end of the deal, the adopted child gets to go back to his family. So that's a little different from what we do today, but it shows the importance not only of having a skilled trade and a way of supporting yourself, but also in passing along these essential arts and crafts of your society. So here's 1695 in London, and this is a list of all the apprenticeships that were available for people to be a part of. And as you can see, if you think about all of the skills that we use every day, the things that we purchase and need for our living, all of those things were made by skilled artisans in the past. Okay, and really, this tradition of artisanship and craftsmanship has moved with us up into the founding of our country and up to today. America was founded by artisans and farmers. So the man on the upper left, you might recognize George Washington, who was trained as a surveyor. On the bottom of the page is Benjamin Franklin, who apprenticed as a printer, and that was his trade for the rest of his life. And then, of course, Paul Revere was a silversmith, and before and after his famous ride at the beginning of the Revolutionary War, he practiced that trade. So very important in the founding of our country. And of course, farmers were also another very important category of citizens in our early country. This is a quote from Thomas Jefferson, and there was kind of this dual split in the leaders, the northern artisans and industrialists and craftsmen and the southern farmers. But part of Jefferson's focus on the importance of the people who cultivate the land and who steward the land shaped how our country developed. The Louisiana Purchase, his interest in land and growing our country and stewarding those resources is evident in a lot of his writings and a lot of the shape of our laws and our the way the country is today. So if most skilled trades have an apprenticeship tradition, why do you think farming doesn't? I think a main reason is that while farming is, I would argue that farming is probably as complex and complicated as skilled trade, requiring as many years to learn or more than any other skilled trade. But everybody farmed back then. Children learned farming from their parents. We don't have that anymore. So this graph shows the percent of our workforce starting in 1790 that was farming. So in 1790, 90% of our population farmed. We had a lot of people who were skilled in that craft, and a lot of people who could train their children, and often many children, in the skills over a long period. Today, we have less than 2% of our population that is currently farming. So we've lost a ton of skills, and we've lost a huge amount of connection to the land and a lot of knowledge and ability to manage properly, to steward the land and to keep it productive. And I think, beyond losing a lot of skilled people and having maybe no longer having a critical mass of people to pass along our traditions, there's this issue of community in agriculture. A lot of modern agriculture just kind of typifies Midwest, lots of corn and beans and lots of large dairy farms. But a lot of modern agriculture has created some environmental issues that we've all, that are on the top of a lot of our minds, but it's also kind of decimated our communities. When we've mechanized farming to the point that we don't need very many people doing farming, so there's not a way of nurturing and maintaining the traditions that have been associated with working the land and knowing your piece of land and knowing how it responds and how to manage it properly. A lot of that is gone where I come from. And along with that, when we see a dairy farm like this one, those farms, they buy a lot of inputs. They spend a lot of money, and that's part of the reason why Wisconsin still has a lot of vibrant rural communities. So you've got a few dairy farms around, you have enough people to support a grocery store and a hardware store, and it's people to be on the school board and that sort of thing. When you shift to a confinement system and you concentrate all those animals on one farm, that farm's going to buy its supplies from out of state, from wherever they can get it cheapest. They lose their connection to the local community and all of that economic activity that goes along with managing a farm. So that's the piece that we've also lost as we've lost all those people in the rural community. And I think this is a critical time, and we should all be alarmed at where we are right now because of this. This is a graph from the Census of Agriculture. We have the top, it goes from under 25 years of age at the bottom to 75 years and up at the top. And the main point of this graph is that 60% of the farmers are in the 55 years and up range. So we've got a lot of people nearing retirement, or people who probably should have retired. And also, the bottom two bars from 34 and under, that's only 6% of the total. We need to bring more people into our community. So this map is kind of another way of saying the same thing. The colors are counties. The darkest counties are farmers that are at an average age of 60 and above, up to the lightest ones that are under 56. So it's kind of a narrow range. But as you can see, it's not a consistent across the country. We have a lot of areas, and unfortunately, this part of the world where we've got more farmers or more ranchers who are aging. If you look at our numbers there, farmers above age 65, there's 571,000 who manage a total of 307 million acres. That's about a third of the acres of farmland in this country that's going to be transferred probably in the next 10 years. And unfortunately, a lot of those farmers don't have a successor. This is Wisconsin data, dairy farms, but the red bars show the percent of farmers in different income levels that do not have a successor. So more than 60%. And I don't know what it is for this region, but it's something that we need to deal with. So we're dealing with it by establishing a formal apprenticeship. So we can no longer, there aren't enough farmers out there to train their kids to maintain the skills and the artisanship of farming. So we're thinking that we need a formal process and a shared vision for making sure that next generation is trained well in terms of stewardship of the land and managing this complex thing we call a farm. The Department of Labor tells us that there are over 1,100 apprenticeship programs that are registered with the Department of Labor and have a formal process for people to go through. We're the only one in commodity scale agriculture right now, and we'd like others to join us. And actually, I just had to throw this in. This happens to be National Apprenticeship Week, so we can celebrate all of us who are training and mentoring the next generation. So our apprenticeship, here's how it works. We're a 2-year program. The majority of it is on-farm training, about 3,700 hours, and then we have about 300 hours of classroom training that's offered primarily online, but we do also include part of the hours that this related instruction hours is networking and going out to pasture works and interacting with the farming community where you're working to help create this pathway to farm ownership. Here's a map of where we are and the different categories of people. Everyone signs up on our website so we can track where everybody's from and what they're doing. The largest number, the red icons are apprentice candidates, so they come from all over the country. We have about 200 of them on the website right now. The blue icons are master dairy grazers who are approved to be mentors in our program. There's right now we're up to 140 of them in 10 states. And then the apprentices are, paired masters are pink. We've got about 40 apprentices that are going through the program right now. Okay, the website also has a place, we call dashboards for all the staff and for the masters and the apprentices so we can track our progress. This is my view of the website. Each master is required to enter the hours that the apprentice works every month. A formal apprenticeship has several kind of basic requirements. One is that the apprentice needs to be paid. And the other one is that they need to receive a pay increase during the course of the apprenticeship that reflects their increasing skills and their increasing value to their master or mentor. Okay, and then here's the page that shows the classroom and related instruction that is also recorded on the website, and then the apprentice can look at their dashboard and it shows exactly how far they've gotten through everything. Each state that we're in, or each region, we have a local education coordinator on the ground who knows each of these pairs individually and works with them. They go out and visit them once a month, make sure they're keeping on track and they're getting the classes taken and they're learning and the relationship is going well. So here's our training guidelines. I know you can't read that, but this is another thing that sets formal apprenticeship apart and I think is a valuable process to go through. So we have a group of our masters and dairy farmers that actually sat down and went through the process of developing a set of shared, or a consensus on what the skills are for this profession, for this craft, for this practice. So this book goes through those shared skills that every apprentice must learn through the program. And that's kind of part of the community building piece where we're bringing together these farmers who have a shared interest in training the next generation, and they have come to a consensus on what skills need to be taught. There's a formal process that you can go through. It's a facilitated meeting or working group that is called a DACUM, developing a curriculum. It's very commonly used in formal education settings, and it's a way of coming to that consensus on what's important in your particular field of agriculture. So for the rest of the time, I'm going to just talk a little bit about our current apprentices and masters and what kind of people are attracted to our program. This is a little bit out of date, a week or two, but as you can see, our apprentices come from very highly varied educational backgrounds. We've got everything from kids right out of high school to people who have a master's degree and degrees in agriculture but want to have hands-on experience so they actually know the animals that they're working with. Split about 2/3 to 1/3 men and women, and then as you can see, our age range is very broad. The average age is hovers around 29 to 30, and we have young families with small kids that are going through the program as well. So here's a few examples. Charles Floodquist was one of those dairy farmers that didn't have a successor. So he hired John as an apprentice. John got a bachelor's degree in dairy science, but wanted that hands-on, wanted to be a farmer. So they just completed their apprenticeship, and they have one of the services we provide is financial advising. So our financial advisor worked with them to help them develop a succession plan. Okay, we also have families who use our program as a structured way of passing along knowledge within the family. So Ricky Baker is Dave's son-in-law, and they have also just completed his apprenticeship, and they're working on purchasing cows and eventually purchasing a farm where Ricky's wife grew up. Gabby Rojas is one of our first graduates, and she's one of these we might call a non-traditional student. She came in with a family of 3 kids, and her husband works on the farm. She completed the program and is milking about 40 cows in an organic system. Okay, and this last one, Drew Botus, is probably taking a more typical typical trajectory, if you think about it, you know, if you're a kid in a farm family, you're apprenticing for 20 or 30 or 40 years sometimes before you have the opportunity to take over that farm. We're providing them with 2 years of training. And Drew, his first move was to take the cows that he earned in equity as he was working for his master and start on a rented farm. And he rented 50 acres. He focused on building his equity in his portable assets, which were the cows. And now he's getting ready to move back to his family's farm that hasn't been a dairy in a couple of generations, but he's tooling it up to be a dairy again. Okay, so we ask our masters and apprentices often what makes the program work for them. Here are some comments. Patience and thorough explanation of why you're doing something. And that's the key. We want these apprentices to learn management skills. We can teach anybody to milk a cow or to do some of the daily chores of the farm. But we need to teach them how to manage, how to integrate all the systems, and to be a good business manager. And then the other thing on the second quote, allowing me to fail. That's a big part of learning. And that's something that both the masters and the apprentices are taken off guard by. It's sometimes expensive, some of the failures that happen, some of the mistakes that get made, but that's one of the most effective ways that we learn. Okay, and then from the master side, a lot of what our coordinators do is troubleshoot relationships, because we don't, as farmers, we're kind of independent, we may have never hired someone before. Choosing someone who's a good fit, personality-wise and philosophy-wise, is important. And then coming at it as a master is a learning process yourself. So you're going to learn something from that apprentice. They're going to bring a whole different set of skills. They're going to bring a whole different set of perspectives, and those can be of value to us as well. Okay, what we're doing now, in addition to managing the master apprentice peers, is we're looking at the importance of community and the importance of building this shared narrative around mentoring and bringing out the next people who are going to take over our farms or be our neighbors. So we're doing a lot of what we call master discussion groups, which we're going to be modeling this afternoon and tomorrow. Monica and I are going to be doing that. And working on other ways of creating this network and creating this community across this vast space of 10 states, and helping people understand that they're part of that community. And then when our apprentices graduate and become journey workers, that support is still there because we've built this community around them. And this is just one of my favorite authors, Wendell Berry, says, a healthy culture is a communal order of memory, insight, value, work, conviviality, reverence, and aspiration. It reveals the human necessities and human limits. It clarifies our inescapable bonds to the earth and to each other. And I really think that within the building of this community and the narrative surrounding mentorship, we can also solve some of the problems we have dealing with land health and stewardship, and really train a next generation who understands these concepts and takes care of the land the way that we need to. All right, I think I'll stop right there. Is there time for questions?
All right, anybody? Right here.
Hi, thank you very much for your time and sharing your experience. I would like to ask a question about the journey person stage in this process. Because that, in my experience as an apprentice, seems to be a part that we haven't yet really developed in an agricultural sense and in a contemporary context. context, and you spoke on it a little bit, but if you could go into more detail about how your organization practices the support of journey workers moving on from their apprenticeship, and also how you envision that changing or evolving over time. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is a work in progress, really. We're all, those of us involved in apprenticeship, especially formal apprenticeship, are kind of breaking new ground because this hasn't been done in agriculture before. So in skilled trades, there is a formal process of becoming a journey worker and having the support of the company that you're working for. If you think about an electrician or a plumber, our journey workers, they want to go out and run their own business on day one. So they're interested in getting out and managing their own farms. So what we build to support them to date has been in response to what they tell us they need. So the main thing that we're providing is the financial advising. And so we've helped them create a business plan before they complete the apprenticeship. And then we help them monitor the business plan and do an annual review of their accounts and how they're doing financially. Then the other pieces are simply creating this peer group that they can rely on and making sure the master is still there to support them. And those kinds of community networking opportunities. There are a lot of other kind of nuts and bolts things that we could provide, and actually I'd be interested in hearing from you what you think is valuable, because we're kind of building it as we go.
I have on my wall a picture drawn by an artist, George Fitman, who was a Western artist in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And it's a picture of two cowboys roping a cow or steer, say what it is. And one's got cow caught by the head, the other cowboy's coming in to get the heels. And under that, George wrote, skilled labor. This is more of a comment with a question. I'm a person who's been through a number of different apprenticeship programs and mentorships in my life. I hold a number of journeyman classifications in the construction industry, okay, as well as other things that I've done. I just read something the other day in the construction industry. We would have a real boom going on in residential and commercial construction if we had the qualified, skilled labor to run the deal. We're about 500,000 short of skilled labor to push our construction industry along, and the same thing is happening in the skilled labor of other industries, include agriculture. I would submit to you that we have a systemic problem in our culture, and this is part of the question. You see this too from what you're doing. A systemic problem in the structure of our education system and our culture, which does not encourage others, young people, to go into the crafts and into agriculture because it's dirty work. Dumb people are farmers. I'm glad I got some dumb farmers because I like to eat 3 times a day. So the question is, what's the solution to the, do you see the systemic problem that I see, and how are we going to jump that hurdle?
So that's a big question. I do see that, and I think I grew up in, I didn't grow up on a farm actually, I grew up in an industrial town in central Illinois that completely died when industry started mechanizing and automating, because it was all based on skilled labor. And I think our country didn't see the loss that created. As you know, across the country, we lost an entire class of of skilled laborers and an entire narrative that there's value and honor in being a skilled laborer. And I'm not really sure how to get it back. I know with our program, I'm amazed and thrilled at the young people that want to learn the hard work of dairy farming and want to stick out 2 years and want to become farmers. And it's part of what we've been talking about these last 2 days. It's not just the money, it's that shared, it's the triple bottom line. We want the quality of life and the social peace and protecting the soil and the land. So, at least in agriculture, I think this might be a good, we might be able to pull this off. I'm not sure about the other industries. Any other?
Can we give you one round of applause for